Alliance's turn to ban.
And we're back. Game 2 of our All-West Series. Alliance taking on Team Liquid, and Liquid gonna have something to shake off. Game 1, really not much else to be said. It drug on for a while, so we talked about how bad it was for an extended amount of time. So we're just not gonna look back at that. We're gonna talk about Team Liquid versus Alliance as a matchup. We just saw Alliance excels at executing their game plan. You simply cannot afford to get behind them at any given point because they are one of the hardest teams to ever come back on, just because they're so comfortable in the compositions they draft. They have such a wide hero pool, so they're often hard to predict even during the draft. But more than anything, they're a team who knows how to take what small little openings you give them and capitalize them in a big way. And Liquid, you know, again, a team that has had ups and downs, still sitting on the up and down of things, but really not hurting too terribly bad in terms of their group standings. But, yeah, I mean, Alliance just got the best of them in Game 1. They're just going to have to try like hell to find a way to not allow that to happen again here in Game 2.
Reserve time.
It's really hard to bounce back from something like that, though. I mean, if you have a game that goes that badly sometimes, if you just let it stop at like 10 minutes and you shrug it off, you say, okay, whatever, GG, that was just, you know, that one fight in the woods set the tone for the whole game. Because they didn't have the high ground advantage. They walked up, they ran into pretty much molten death, and then they couldn't come back from it. And it was a tri-lane versus a tri-lane. That is a very rare scenario, but it happened. So you just shake it off and you say, okay, we'll get into the next game. But they didn't do that. They just sat there and they just kept getting destroyed for 25 minutes. I think it would have been much better for them to just come into this a lot quicker. But now, for this game, Liquid, they have a chance to redeem themselves. I think they definitely have it in them. I don't think that was very indicative of what Liquid is capable of in terms of overall skill and coordination. After all, they did perform pretty well yesterday. They're still positive in the groups, and I think they're still in the top 4, if I'm not mistaken, even after that loss. And Alliance are still technically undefeated. So the odds are definitely in their favor. But I think between these two teams, we could actually see a close game for Game 2.
Yeah, Liquid taking their time with the second ban. Usually the front 4 bans come out pretty damn quick. And but yeah, Alliance is just, you know, that's one of the things that makes Alliance such a difficult team to not just game plan against, but to actually just to take on in any way, shape, or form, no matter the environment. They're going to go ahead and ban out the Chen, but there are basically, you can fill up an entire ban column with nothing but respect bans against Alliance and be totally justified in it. Like, there's no question about it. And then Alliance is still quite happy to continue to run heroes that you're not used to seeing nearly as much. I remember, you know, PA, as you had mentioned, Loda, one of the very few who has popularized that hero. He's a guy who can play a gyrocopter, loves to play an anti-mage, can play a CK plus an IO, etc. And we actually are going to see an IO come through again. It looks like Alliance not worried about giving it away and giving Team Liquid the first pick. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me a ton if Liquid just let it go this time. It just decided to try and make Alliance execute that hero into them and instead tested their mettle as a 5-on-5 team fighting sort of a squad. I mean, it's a tough decision to make, but they know that Alliance obviously, I mean, and you know, in fairness, Game 1 was an aberration. I mean, as bad as it was, and it wasn't as if Alliance would do that to them, you know, 9 times out of 10, let alone, you know, 2 times out of 10, let alone 9 times out of 10. It just, the way it panned out based on the compositions that were drafted by both teams, Alliance got the one thing that that Team Liquid simply could not afford to give them, and they gave it to the worst possible heroes, and from that point on, the laning phase was completely and utterly broken. So it's not as if Liquid's just that bad at running an IO lineup. They're just going to take the profit, actually, and pick that away from Alliance. I like that. Cheeky Team Liquid. That's how you bounce back.
Yeah, it is definitely a nice thing to take it away from Bulldog, but now they leave things open like Lifestealer. They can possibly take Gyrocopter again if they want to do that. They can take DK, of course. Chen's banned, but they could also take a hero for Ake here if they want to get their hands on something like an Enchantress, which wouldn't really shock me at all. Alliance love playing within their comfort zone, and they do it amazingly well. Like, that's just what Alliance does. But no, they're going to go with the Wisp instead. So they're going to give Alliance a Wisp, and they're going to give them a Batrider together. That's pretty freaking scary if you ask me. So now they already have 2 methods of dealing with the Nature's Prophet. And the Nyx is the immediate reaction from Liquid, which is definitely good against Batrider. But I think that S4's Bat plus a Wisp is, I don't know, man. That's risky business, giving stuff like that to Alliance.
Yeah, I'm very much inclined to agree. And yeah, giving away one of the two, understandable. I mean, but again, this is what I was talking about. Like, there's so many heroes that, like, if you could replace Io with Chen, and then we'd be saying the same thing. You could replace Batrider with Lone Druid. We'd be saying the exact same thing. It's just Alliance just has that deep of a hero pool They have that many heroes that all of their players are not just
Alliances
specialized in, but are known for excelling at on a global level. And then, of course, you just have heroes like Io, where it's like, yeah, they have an excellent Io player as well. I mean, and even EGM, probably one of the more overlooked members of Alliance, if you could even say that, given the success they've had. He's got heroes like that as well. He's got Windrunner's a good example. EGM's Windrunner is just phenomenal. So Alliance just has this huge palette with which to paint a composition that is so hard to deal with, and Liquid doing what they think they can to stop it, at least taking one of those weapons away, and a weapon that they like to use themselves in the Nature's Prophet.
Alliances turn to
Yeah, I
ban.
think the Bounty Hunter and the Enchantress ban here from Liquid are pretty standard. Should be expected, I should say, just because you don't want to give them any more aggressive potential than they already have. The thing is now, with the Prophet gone, the Lone Druid, the Bounty,
10 seconds
what does
remaining.
Admiral Bulldog play here? Does he get a Darkseer? Did they want to go for something like a
5
Jakiro as a
seconds
secondary
remaining.
support, pick their carry after the fact, and go for a Darkseer offlane so they have a decent combo and they still have a
Reserve
really,
time.
really good fighting team? I think that might be a decent addition to what they already have. But for Liquid, their team is still wide open. Like, they can send the Nyx mid, they can use the Nyx as a support, they can jungle the Prophet, they can go short lane Prophet, long lane Prophet, doesn't really matter what they want to do with it. I think it's a little bit nicer to have some ambiguity behind your picks than what Alliance have right now, because typically when you see Wisp, it's going to be a tri-lane, and when you see Bat, at least if it's Alliance's Bat, it's either going to be, 9 times out of 10 it's mid. It's usually S4 playing it, and not to say that Bulldog can't, but it's not really that
Alliances
common.
turn to pick.
And we're going to see the last ban out, going to be the Visage. So Alliance, very well acquainted with Team Liquid, as we've said. I mean, these teams know each other extremely well. Now, this next pickup from Alliance is the one that's interesting to me. They still haven't gotten a hero to pair with the Io. But to be honest, like, there's, the CK, there's only one ban left for Team Liquid. And there are a number of heroes that can go with it. They may just save that carry pickup for dead last and
10
just not even
seconds
worry
remaining.
about it. And instead fill out their lineup, like you said, with a Darkseer. At this point,
5 seconds
Bulldog's
remaining.
Darkseer is extremely, extremely good. You can also play a Clockwork if they wanted to go that direction. No, they're going to go and grab the Alchemist. So
Team
the
Liquid's
and
turn
again,
to
when
pick.
it comes to the Bad Rider as well, Bad Rider for many teams is almost considered exclusively a jungle and an off lane here. You just don't see him go mid nearly as much as you used to, just based on team preference. So that mid lane could be open to an Alchemist if they wanted, but again, it is S4, so chances are Bad gonna wind up taking up shop at mid, and that'll just be Loda's Alchemist.
Yeah, I think that's probably more likely. It could be a support Alchemist too.
seconds
I mean,
remaining.
it's not necessarily a horrible thing. It does a decent amount of damage. You can just go for the
5
spray,
seconds
and you have
remaining.
some nice damage output, and then you can pick a carry that goes well with the Wisp. But
5
for Team Liquid
seconds
now,
remaining.
we're going to start to see their team come together here. They're going to pick their either
Alliances
secondary
turn
support
to
or their
pick.
first support, depending on if the Nyx is mid or not. There are just a lot of questions between both of these lineups that are pretty hard to answer in terms of where are they going to be. Because Liquid right now, they have a ton of options, whereas I think Alliance are maybe a little more set in their ways in terms of what their lanes are going to start to shape up to be. I would expect the Alchemist and the Wisp to be together, and I would expect the Bat to either be off lane or mid, probably leaning more towards mid. The fourth pick, though, for Alliance is
10
going to say a
seconds
lot
remaining.
about what their lineup is going to do, and this is a point in the game where when you have this
5
picking phase
seconds
and Liquid
remaining.
still has the opportunity to pick 2 heroes and Alliance has to show their cards first, that's when you can start to
Reserve
take an
time.
advantage, because you can see the fourth pick, you can say, okay, we know what they're doing now, we can pick this to compensate, or we can run this kind of strategy to make sure that it's going to be fine. So I think that Liquid might have a tiny advantage here, but they also said that during the first day, second pick technically had, what was it, like a 65% win rate, so Alliance might be okay.
Team Liquid's
Keeper of the
turn
Light,
to pick.
going to be the next pickup. That's going to give them even more global presence. Alliance looking to stretch the map even more so than a Nature's Prophet can. Liquid going to be very much going to have to be on their toes throughout the entire game, especially when you're talking about the initiation potential out of the other 2 heroes we see in the Bat and the Alchemist. It's easy to forget. If you have correct timing and you have that teamwork, that inherent chemistry where you've just
seconds
played together
remaining.
so long, which, I mean, at this point, it's Alliance. Alliance is just the,
5 seconds
when the
remaining.
terms team chemistry and composition, and all that come to mind,
Reserve
Alliance is the
time.
first. Oh, okay. We're gonna have a Spirit Breaker.
Alliances turn
I have
to
actually
ban.
seen Liquid do that before, and I love it. Spirit Breakers, the hell with it. Things didn't go well game 1. Throw him a curveball. Spirit Breaker gives you global presence in his own way. He can function as a support. Don't think he will, though. I'm thinking that's actually going to be, I don't know. I guess that could be a support, then run the Nyx mid and then pick a carry. I guess maybe that's the option. When I saw them do it, that's what they did. Fluff and Stuff played the Spirit Breaker as a tri-lane support.
It can be a support. It's not really a terrible thing. The movement speed that Spirit Breaker gives your team is insane. Once you get 4 points into Empowering Haste, it's 18 bonus move speed, 900 aura radius, so it's really, really large. Of course, his ability to lock down a hero, like a hero, of course, just one, is unparalleled. Between every single time you charge now, you get a greater bash, you get a greater bash from your Nether Strike, and you get one decent RNG bash. And that hero is stunned for like 6 seconds. It's absolutely ridiculous. And his damage output is pretty insane too, even without a lot of items, because his damage more or less is based on his move speed, and of course how many times you actually get a greater bash during a team fight. So I think that Alliance is on the same page as you in terms of thinking that Spirit Breaker is a carry. Otherwise, banning the DK doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. DK typically is run mid. Sure, he could have gone bottom and been farming with the Spirit Breaker and bench supporting, but I think it's maybe a bit more likely that the Nyx in this case is going to be mid, assuming that the Bat Rider is going to be there, because Nyx can actually deal with him. Not beat him, but it's not going to really kill him either.
Right. Now we'll see. Look, we're going to show us something soon enough. They go ahead and ban out the Puck, which if they were looking for their mid, that might have been a hero they wanted to consider. But, the Puck ban's actually really interesting to me. Own right, I guess, assuming perhaps Bulldog was going to play it in the offlane, because I mean, again, Bat for most teams is at least half the time, if not more so, winds up in the jungle just because of how much he can abuse Firefly. He's just one of those guys who starts out really slow, but by the time it hits 8 or 9 minutes, if he's efficient and he's left untangled and just left to his own devices by the enemy team, he will rush out an 8, 9, 10-minute blink dagger, tranquil boots, or whatever boots he wants almost every time. And they're going to go ahead and grab us a Timbersaw, so that's certainly an interesting pickup. This is what, the 4th time we've now casted a Timbersaw here in the TI prelims?
Yeah, it's going to be S4. So they are going to send the Bat to the offlane. So it's going to be the tri-lane, safe lane, tri-lane with Keeper, Alchemist, Wisp, and then the Bat Rider is going to be played by Bulldog, and then S4 is going to play Timbersaw. The question is now for Liquid, what are they actually going to put mid? Timbersaw mid is actually... It's pretty good. It's hard to actually harass out a lane, and once he gets the bottle especially, his mana cost is so low on his spells that he can spam a lot, and it looks like the choice is actually going to be Shadow Fiend. That could be a safe lane Shadow Fiend, though, but Korok is also playing in a Spirit Breaker, so you were right about the farming Spirit Breaker, which means that it's going to be a tri-lane of Nyx, Venge, and Spirit Breaker, and potentially a Shadow Fiend mid.
Yeah, this is going to be, if nothing else, an interesting game. And, Spirit Breaker's always been one of those heroes that, when you see him played competitively, which granted is quite rare, you had Fear from EG was playing around with him for a little while. And Liquid, again, I don't know how many times they played him, but this is the 3rd time, actually, that I've seen them play Spirit Breaker. They used him in the D2L Season 3 a couple of times and actually won both of those matches. Because I remember the old joke we used to have about D2L Season 2 that we've seen Bloodseeker's been played multiple times and has a 100% win percentage. I kind of ported that over and used that for Spirit Breaker in the D2L Season 3. But, I mean, he is a hero that really, it seems like he has a lot of potential. It just, how do you tap into it? Like you said, what he's good at is no secret, just locking down a single hero. The problem is, he's kind of a one-trick pony, and if he gets behind or he gets taken out of that by some way, shape, or form, then he just really doesn't contribute nearly as much, or nearly enough to justify the pick.
Yeah, he's kind of a snowball hero. That's the thing. It's kind of similar to how you expect a TA to play. A very aggressive style of hero that only really excels in situations where you're kind of ahead at the beginning. So if they can get that kind of momentum, I think they're going to be in okay shape. The one nice thing about Spirit Breaker in this game is that he's going to get a free lane. So he doesn't have to worry about getting farm contested or anything like that. He can go for the quick treads, he can go for the drums, or whatever build he decides that he wants to do. And then they can try to force some action. Because regardless of what kind of tri-lane Alliance has, it's really hard to stop a charging cow. Like, if he finds his target, and he gets in, and he gets off another strike, then that hero is most likely going to be dead, no matter what. So, I think it's going to be an interesting game. Liquid have a significant chunk of damage output, especially single target. We're talking like double nuke from the Nyx, Spirit Breaker, Shadow Fiend hits really hard as well, and Magic Missile. But they kind of are lacking in the AoE department. They're more, we're going to try to isolate you and get kills that way. And against Alliance's team, that could work to a certain extent, but also have to be aware of the Wisp all the time. And that's Alliance's Wisp too, who are damn good at playing it. So I think it's still going to be pretty scary for Liquid.
And the horn's going to blow. We see the lanes take shape. Liquid going to be left to farm up their charging cow. as you so eloquently stated it. Lions going to be left to their own devices as well, denying the creep skipping attempts of Bulba, trying to be cutesy. Not going to be able to get away with it this time, so creep equilibrium will begin in favor of Alliance in this top lane. Going to slow him down a little bit. And here in mid, range versus a melee, sure enough, but as you mentioned, we've seen a couple of times, and we saw the one time we saw Timber just really do poorly was in the off lane, and if I remember correctly. And it's just because he's a hero who really does want levels. He does need something. He needs some kind of an item, something to help him shore up his mana issues. Otherwise, he just becomes, he's spending more time in the base region than anything else. Mike going to move into position here under cover of an invisibility room. And S4 could be in a lot of trouble here. TC, not level 2 yet, so doesn't have anything to contribute with right clicks. Only one stack in the Necromastery. And Mike's going to have to make up his mind up. Just going to start auto-attacking him. There we go. He's going to eat a bit of damage in the process. But S4, look at him play so aggressive, try to body block him. But, yeah.
Yes.
Do what?
Sorry, I was going to say, he just doesn't have any damage. Like,
Yep.
a Shadow Fiend with no souls and level 1 cannot do anything at all. And S4 is doing a really good job so far of denying TC as much farm as he possibly can. The thing about Shadow Fiend is, eventually TC is going to start getting souls, and S4 is going to have a pretty hard time competing in the lane. However, once S4 hits 6, he can solo kill a Shadow Fiend, no problem, especially if all these trees are still around, because it takes one Chakram, a Whirling Death, and a Timber Chain, and SF just dies.
S4 certainly off to a good start so far. We can actually see our Spirit Breakers getting the farm he wants, and this is something that, again, when I saw Liquid run this before, they actually ran it on Fluff, and it was played as a pure support. Don't get to see a pure free farming Spirit Breaker all that often. So this is certainly going to be a game worth watching and worth remembering, especially to see it done on this stage. Ake and EGM guarding the haste rune right now. There's a lot of convergence taking place. Nope, never mind. Bulldog just doing his thing in the jungle. But doesn't look like they're going to do much of anything. They're just going to leave that haste rune actually for the moment. Go ahead, hook S4 up with EGM just for a little bonus regen. And yeah, Chakra Magic plus Tether. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, you pretty much are permanently manned forever. That's just how that particular combination works. And they're actually leaving the haste top for S4, I believe, who just got his bottle. And the thing about a haste on S4 this early is that he can actually dive and kill TC with a haste. Like, that's one of the things that you always have to be worried about. The one thing also is that S4 doesn't have a point in the Timber Chain, so he might just decide to keep it and get the 4-minute rune instead, because it's going to be spawning in a minute anyway, and TC is already tangoed back up to full health, so I think he'll be able to maintain his lane presence at least for a little bit longer. But the lead that S4 has isn't gigantic. I mean, he's only 4 creeps ahead right now, and we know how good of a snowball hero Shadow Fiend is. And once he gets another point into Necromastery and starts getting the 20 souls, and then after that 28, S4 is not going to be able to sustain like he has been in the early phases.
Bora continuing to just farm up. He's actually out farming Loda at this point. Loda's sitting on 19 CS. He did get 1 point in a spray, but now maxing the green screen, so no big surprise there. And right behind him, the Timbersaw, as you mentioned, S4 obviously doing well. TC has reached a point level 5, 3 points into the Shadow Rings. In quite good shape. And just waiting, I mean, this is one of those laning phases. Really, there's not a lot to talk about, just because both teams seem quite happy with the status quo. I mean, obviously, mid's a point of contention, and at some point, we're going to see a rotation. We actually are going to see Ake come over and do a little warding, and the team has nothing but sentries, actually. But S4 has that haste rune, 4-minute rune, did just spawn. It has been spotted by IX Mike. It will be a regen, so he won't be able to get his hands on it. At least not for the moment. And now he's going to take off running, but a little tardy to the party. Spot Mike. Actually, no. I thought Mike would have picked it up, and he's going to blow right past him. No, the magic missile and the denial of it. Now we're going to have the charge coming out. S4 still hasted. Has half-time left on it. Going to be hit, locked down. This is going to be not quite our first blood, as he's able to bottle in between auto attacks. That's why I thought Mike had another stun, and I knew magic missile would be off cooldown, but just short on the manor. That's our first blood. Very near miss for S4.
Is under attack.
Yeah, it was really nice timing on the Sprout too by Bulba. He waited intentionally for the Whirling Death to come out before he threw it out, because he knew it would just kill the trees anyway, and S4 didn't have any tangos at all, so very close call for him. But no harm, no foul, I guess. He really wanted that regen, though. He was saving the haste rune specifically to try to get down there, but he actually left mid late. I think he didn't go right away. He went at like 4:12 or something like that, or 4:15, and he couldn't get down there in time. But that also gives TC more time to sit here and farm in the lane. He's pulled ahead in overall CS and denies, so he's not doing too badly anymore. If he can get his treads up, then it's going to be a lot harder for S4 to aggressively go on him, especially when these raises hit level 4. That's going to be the point where S4 is not really having the best time anymore.
Spirit Breaker very nearly level 6. That's when things get fun. That's when he can start to be as active as he wants. Or, you know, when it comes to pure carry potential, you look at, you know, you look at the lineup of Liquid. I don't, you know, Shadow Fiend is a great carry, but he's just one of those. He's a carry that is kind of gonna struggle against the lineup that Alliance has. There's just so many ways for them to get on top of him. There's so many ways to focus fire him down, and especially when you're talking about trying to outfarm an Alchemist Slave played by one of the best carries in the West in Loda. Just really, really risky. I would imagine that this farming Spirit Breaker is gonna want to be doing more with his He's gonna be want to be doing more with his farm than just getting more farm.
Yeah, I think the game plan for Liquid is going to be, let's try to cause some fights. Let's try to maybe even gank mid or something like that. Because you can actually kill the Timbersaw in mid solely because there's not a whole lot of trees to grapple to. And because of the fact that he's maxing Whirling Death and doesn't have a single point in a Timber Chain, he's still very susceptible to getting ganked here. So he needs to be very cautious of that fact. And he does actually secure his mana boots now, so his farm is still doing decent. But TC has been pretty much unpressured. They've left him totally alone. He's still bottle crowing. He's got his level 4 raise now. So all said and done, I think Liquid are kind of getting away with this laning phase, I would say.
And that's the other question for Loda. Loda actually did pick up a Midas. That doesn't surprise me at all. And Loda, when you pick up a Midas, like I could see Loda going Midas Battle Fury. I really could. Just because it's Loda. But other than that, question becomes, do you go for a Magic Immunity first, which is questionable given the bash that comes out of Spirit Breaker, or do you decide to go for a damage item, say a Shadow Blade after Midas, that kind of thing? Do your best Nature's Prophet impersonation.
Well, if they want to try to fight, the Shadow Blade is clearly the choice. And when you have a Wisp, typically you're going to want to try to force something. But at the same time, they can draw out the game too, because like you said, they have an Alchemist with a Midas, so the longer they draw the game out, the more gold that item is actually going to give him. The downside is that they don't technically have a dual core. I mean, Timbersaw does a decent amount of damage, but he's not a hard carry.
Right.
He falls off significantly once BKBs are picked up, and the Spirit Breaker and the Shadow Fiend will both eventually get BKBs. Heck, the Prophet might even get one this game, just because a lot of the damage from Alliance is magic. Actually, all of it is, except for the Alchemist. So, I don't know. It's kind of a tough call if you're Alliance. I think it's really tempting to go for the Battle Fury after the Midas, just because of how farmed he actually is right now. 55 CS at 8 minutes is absolutely ridiculous. And the scary thing is actually that Korok is right behind him, even though he has not opted to go for a Midas himself. He's gone for the Urn, so that goes to show that they do want to fight.
And Korok, I'll be beginning to rotate across the map. Looks like he might want to be, yep, just hanging out and getting in position. Going to try to catch S4 asleep at the wheel, along with the rest of his teammates. IX Mike. A few things out front. Now, the timing on the charge is actually deceptively hard sometimes. Up there it is. And he is going to go ahead and go for it. It's going to be right into an Illuminate, though. Shadow Rays well shot by TC. Does a fair amount of damage. But yeah, you know, in terms of the charge, want to make sure it's like if you watch American football, it's like lining up the kickoff. Like when on kickoffs, it looks so easy when you watch professionals do it, but there are a lot of rules governing it where you can't cross a certain line and all this stuff. That's kind of what it feels like. You have to get the timing just right to really do it well whenever you're trying to rush someone down with your team. Fluff and stuff going to be rushed down, and a rather inglorious first blood as he just kind of wandered up and Dog's Lasso. And Alliance first on the board for the second game in a row.
I'm really questioning the decision of Korok to not just ult the Timbersaw. If he had landed that ulti, S4 would have died. Like, there's no way he would have been able to live through it. Even with a haste turn, you get stunned for way too long. He has level 4 greater bash, so it's over 1.5 seconds of being stunned. And the raise from TC landed anyway, so he actually technically just got his teammate killed by not using his ultimate because S4 just ran with a haste turn that he used mid all the way to bottom to kill his mix. So, yeah, very questionable coming out of Liquid, but nice for Alliance. They're on the board here. And the first blood, it actually went to Batrider, so it's going to be a nice step towards his Blink Dagger, which he actually almost has already anyway.
Yep, almost has an understatement. He has it like in one half of a creep's whisker. And he'll certainly get it here. And yeah, I mean, 10-minute Blink Dagger, been a pure farm. He's ducked out a lane a few times, or pure jungle farm, rather. The Alchemist is now beginning to open things up. Loda at 70 CS at 10 minutes in, including Midas, which has been up for a very, very long time. Checking the GPM. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's rare to see this. We're at 10 minutes in. He's got 574 GPM. That's how efficient his farm has been so far.
And it's not going to get any slower.
Yep.
And he is definitely aware that something is up because he is sitting basically on his tower flush, scouting out EGM, though.
And we're going to hear a charge. And there you go. Poor Wisp. Spotted out, cleaned up. Liquid finds their way onto the board, makes it 1-1. Very fortuitous kill. Was EGM 6 before that happened? Okay, so yeah, last I checked him, it was 5, and he was soaking some pretty good experience. So, at the very least, he is 6 now. Now, you know, hooking up the Alchemist with the Wisp, it takes a lot of, you know, just being able to channel the unstable concoction before you actually trigger the relocation, because the relocation it happens pretty quickly. That's the kind of thing with proper communication. That actually can be unbelievably lethal, because it almost always guarantees, if you spot out a solo target, that you're going to land a max duration concoction. And now they're going to charge again. Korok chasing him down, gonna not quite charge through the woods, thinks better of it, decides to go ahead and go back in late.
Yeah, it's a good call. You don't really want to dive under a tower like that because the Wisp, of course, was 6. They had to have known that because it just killed him. And even if it's just the Wisp who just uses relocate in the lane, you can get stunned under the tower, you can get concoctioned, and things can turn out really badly for you. And Loda has a Shadow Blade too, and they didn't have any detection. Oh, they're going on mid.
And there you go. Mike, never had a chance. Cleaned up. They're going to be able to do this pretty damn frequently. And they didn't even really channel the concoction all that well that time. But not that they needed to. EGM going to head back on his own. We see Liquid now going to go ahead and rotate down, fluff stuff under cover of Vendetta. Korok's right there with him. Got 3 from Alliance. It's going to be Ake, S4, and Loda, and they're going to charge through. They're going to go after the Timber Saw. Timber did some damage. Here comes Loda, and unloads it. Korok cleaned up. Loda with a Shadow Blade up very quickly following that. Minus his GPM just continues to climb. He's closing in on 600 GPM in a 12-minute game, which is just silly. But at the very least, Liquid finding ways to give as good as they get. We're at 12 minutes, so we'll look at the gold graph. And yeah, about 4,000 gold in favor of Alliance, coming actually after an update. It's closer to 5,000 now. 2,500 experience, give or take. TC, the bright spot here. Like you said, he's been left alone, kind of to his own devices in a big way. So they're going to be relying on him a lot to be pouring out damage against this team once things do get more aggressive.
Well, they did kill him. When you were watching bottom, they went in mid at the same time, and they managed to take him out. So when I said they were going in mid, I didn't actually realize that you were looking at bottom too. Much less did I even notice that there were 2 fights going on simultaneously. But that's just what Alliance does. They like to force fights on multiple fronts, and it can kind of discombobulate a team, more or less. But they're going to be pushing the tier 1 bottom now, and Liquid have not reacted just yet. There's not even a TP on Korok or a TP on any hero on their team at all besides Shadow Fiends. So yeah, they're not going to be defending that.
And yeah, absolutely no way they can. In mid, they're going to try to put something together with a push. TC, almost level 11 of his level 2 ulti soon. Maxed out Shadow Rays and maxed out Necromastery, so beginning to feel a bit like a Shadow Fiend should feel. They're going to end up trading away tier 1 for tier 1. Alliance does have a glyph if they want to spend it. And yeah, they're going to. We're going to have, oh, look at this beautiful positioning. They're going to engage on S4, but they're surrounded. And now here comes the rest of Alliance, throwing out the concoction, locking down IX Mike. IO ends up cleaned up. And really the timing is what was off there. The positioning of how Alliance was trying to do that. They had him coming in a circle. It was basically a perimeter of bad news. And Bulldog is going to end up dying, actually, as Spirit Breaker's Earn Charge nets him a kill. But yeah, the positioning of what they were trying to do was so beautiful, but they just all arrived with an unsynced, and Liquid reacted perfectly, managing to get a tower out of it and take the kill lead. Well played.
Yeah, S4 died before he could really do much of anything, and he felt pretty tanky because he's got a point booster and 1200 HP, 2 points in that reactive armor, but it simply didn't matter. He died way, way too fast, and the fight was pretty much lost from there. So the thing that's kind of weird is you look at the scoreboard and you look at the CS, and you're like, where's Alliance actually getting their lead from? And pretty much all of it's Loda.
Yep, that's the truth. Speaking of Loda, they're going to look to take a little back from him, and they do manage to pick him off. And nice Shadow Rays gets the 2. Nice swap from IX Mike. Bulldog but it ends up cleaned up because of it. Now the reinitiation as S4 leads the way, trying to track down one of these low HP supports. Korok going to be the one eating a lot of the damage. Tether stunned out. TC still doing damage. Heard the ulti go off, engaging on the EGM. Even Roshan wants to get in the mix of this fight. That's going to be a killing spree, and TC on a triple kill. And Liquid, who seemed to be perhaps on the way to a repeat performance, just falling behind incrementally, instead have just completely turned this game around. The gold lead more than cut in half, and by the time this tower drops, very likely to have evaporated entirely. And Alliance trying to make this lineup work for them. Their execution is just not up to stuff, while Liquid is executing as well as they could possibly ask of them.
Yeah, that was a really good team fight from Liquid, no doubt about it. They just caught out 2 heroes straight away. Loda was a little bit out of position, and it's hard because when you're playing against Spirit Breaker, basically any position is out of position.
Right.
Because you can just go on them from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. You're going to get charged. It's a 2.5-second stun, and then you're going to get bashed after the fact. And the thing that really sucks about playing against a Spirit Breaker is that even if Loda were to go for a BKB, he's still going to get stun locked, even if it doesn't do any damage. He's never really going to have control of his hero. And they have heroes like Shadow Fiend, who already have a point in the presence of the Dark Lords, and the minus armor is going to start coming out from him. And once he finishes the BKB, he can go for damage items. I really do feel as though Liquid are doing a really fantastic job in this game, especially compared to the game that they had prior to this one. And they've taken the experience lead. They still have a bit of gold to make up, but they're doing a really, really nice job.
Loda and company going headhunting again. He's got a DD. They may, yep, just bend it on into Roche. And Roshan, now the target. We'll see if Liquid's going to be able to respond. The tough going if they can. Roche going to drop very quickly. That DD on Loda, quite effective. Of course, Chemical Rage keeping him alive. He is going to be going straight for an Assault Cuirass following that Shadow Blade. Now he's going to be charged out. He does cancel it. Liquid making their way over. Korok canceling the charge. They're not going to have that at his disposal. Roche at about half health. There comes Venge's Wave of Terror. I almost want to say Scream of Terror. I said that sounds stupid. This is what casting this many hours and sleeping none ever gets you. But 17 minutes in, and they do manage to at least abate the Roche attempt and keep this game going. But yeah, the gold lead almost completely gone now, and like you said, basically all of it was loaded to begin with, and now Shadow Blade done on Bulba.
Top tower is under attack.
Yeah, this is the point in the game where Alliance have to make something happen. They wanted to go for Roshan because they knew that they just lost a huge advantage, and it's more or less even. 3,000 experience in 18 minutes isn't gigantic, but it's enough to make Liquid feel confident. It's long enough of a time for TC to finish up that BKB, which is going to be insanely important because, as we mentioned before, there's just not a whole lot of damage output on the side of Alliance that isn't magic yet. They need to have Loda finish that AC, maybe go for a BKB and then a damage item so he can actually take somebody down. But as it stands right now, the Spirit Breaker is going to have his BKB soon too. And then if he charges a target, he doesn't ever have to stop. I mean, that train is never late, and they're going to go on Loda again, bottom.
And Loda going to be charged out, still continuing, and oh, wow! Saved by Io. Unfortunately, Io, of course, going to be a sacrificial lamb for this, and you better give your buddy a pat on the butt there, Loda. Not going to be fun. No, screw it. They're going to re-engage off of it. TC's going to be lassoed out. He's going to end up blown up. The damage from his mini-ult, quite good. However, they're going to be able to pursue out Fluff and get him as well. Loda says, no man left behind, AC. Shut your mouth, son. I was going back. 10-7. Alliance making up a bit of ground now. Picking off the Shadow Fiend in particular. Very, very important. Does have his BKB done. But now Roshan, the long-lost nemesis, looks like that's going to end up being the target.
That was very needed for Alliance. Even though technically they weren't behind, they lost a really, really big advantage. So now they've gotten it back. That sentry placement, by the way, was sick. Like, how unfortunate for TC that he gets an Invis rune. He's like, okay, cool. I can just walk down here, walk past them, no big deal. And then Ake is like, nope, casual sentry. You're going to get lassoed by Admiral Bulldog. I don't think that Liquid were expecting a fight there, even though the Tier 1 tower was still standing. So it was just a really nice call by Alliance because there was no way Liquid were going to anticipate that fight.
Korok, as you had mentioned, very near his BKB. Only needs about 400 more gold. Oda closing in on his Assault Cuirass as well. That's enough to, yeah, he's just about got it done. A few hundred more gold, he'll be sitting pretty. S4 did manage to pick up the point booster, as you mentioned. You know, and again, even just a point booster, something to help shore up a timber saw. I mean, he's not. It's not that he's not at least a little survivable in the beginning. The mana is one of the bigger factors. But right now, Liquid pulling back and just regrouping inside the dire side jungle. Looks like Alliance not going to want to occupy that piece of territory. They do have, do not have wards actually. Liquid's wards. Liquid is hanging out waiting for a target. Not going to be lucky enough to find one. It's not yet.
I'm a bit surprised actually that Alliance aren't just going for it. They have the Aegis up on Loda. They could definitely defend the tier 2, and this is their safe lane tier 2 as well, which you definitely don't want to give away for free. So I would imagine that we're going to see a TP from Admiral Bulldog, and then they can just relocate in with Loda. They could have just been waiting for the AC money, and then they can just fight after that. But they're actually just walking up there, so Liquid being a little bit hesitant about pushing in, maybe expecting that Alliance would have defended the tower anyway, and it's probably not worth the risk, especially considering they know that there's an Aegis, so they're just going to play it a little bit more safely. And Ake is just making himself a house in the woods over here. He's just way the heck in there. He's going to be prepared for some sick Illuminate spamming as soon as they come up here. But they regroup, and it does look like they do want to try to apply some pressure.
And, yep, showing their faces in mid. Liquid has just been kind of hanging out in the jungle here for the most part. They really have just been standing there for a long time. Bulba separated from them. Needs to buy himself a nicer pair of shoes. Probably get around to it at some point. Yeah, Liquid is actually spending a lot of time over
Dire's top tower
now
is
Alliance
under
going to
attack.
notice it, look to respond. Okay, landing an Illuminate on TC. Just heard the Vendetta. Borak going to be looking for a target as well. Vendetta. There you are. Out in mid, so Liquid finally does break up the party. Still running together, largely conglomerated. And it feels like Liquid wants to fight. They're just not sure how they want to fight.
Well, I mean, what do you do, really? Loda's got the BKB. The AC is now finished. Wait, where did his money go? Oh, never mind. Excuse me. He just bought a BKB instead of finishing the AC. That's where the money went. Okay, I'm sorry. I haven't really gotten that much sleep either.
Yep.
So I had a total brain fart. I'm like, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. How does he have that much gold? And all right, well, yeah, he bought the BKB instead. But how are they going to engage into this if you're Liquid? They don't really have any initiators outside of the Spirit Breaker charging. That's pretty much the only way. And even if they do that, he has to preemptively BKB.
Waiting to see if we're actually going to have a clash. Korok is shoving his snout down this lane. Lodo within slapping distance of him at this point. And Korok, don't know if he's trying to bait. He's trying to take a look. Nonetheless, Liquid will go ahead and show their faces now. I'm kind of with you. This is really not prototypical Alliance style. There's one thing Alliance does well. They know how to turtle and they know how to grind whenever they get behind. And, you know, right now they are not behind. I mean, it's granted, like you said, the way to look at it is just how big of a lead they lost. And that sucks for them. They're not behind by any stretch of the imagination. And it's very much more typical of them to just say, okay, we're not going to sit back. We want to go get aggressive and put what lead we have to use. Now we're going to see Fluff and Stuff show his face. There's a swap. S4 brought in. Korok looking to clean him up and will be able to do so. Lasso on the Bulba drags him out of the fight. IX Mike next to go down. Loda chopping away on TC. BKB doesn't help against a big angry purple man with swinging swords. And he will be able to TP away. So they end up feeding 3 for 1. They actually had to spend a buyback as well. The Nyx assassin bought back and teleported back. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to contribute much of anything. And the one hero they did manage to pick up was the Keeper of the Light. Now Korok going to join the list of casualties. 12 to 11, and slowly but surely Alliance not just cutting down on the kill score, but beginning to turn that goal graph south.
Yeah, that was a buyback too, though, from Alliance. I mean, they kind of had to, because S4 is a really big damage dealer at this point in the game, and he can't afford to be dead. Otherwise, that fight would have been pretty much all Liquid's to take. They didn't even get the Aegis, though, which is a really, really big bummer. I mean, they committed a lot to that fight. That was 2 10-second BKBs. They didn't even win it. They couldn't pressure the tier 2, and now they could very well lose their tier 1 mid, but I think Loda might just retreat. Oh, nope, swapped in.
Good swap, Loda. Spotted out, chain stun. Here comes Bulba to try and help. They just can't kill the big SOB. Chakra will be thrown out. Yeah, they just can't kill him. Even if they did, he has an Aegis. It's reclaimed in 60 seconds, but tough going, man. I mean, like right now, they just don't have the damage. The build that TC has gone is the ultra survivable build. Getting up lifesteal in the form of Helm of the Dominator, going to help him out with his armor issues. He's now at +12 instead of +7. But that plus BKB plus Shreds means he's 100% reliant on Shadow Rays to do the majority of his damage. Now, don't get me wrong, he is hitting like a Shadow Fiend should at 180, 190 a clip just because of Necromastery. But the problem is they really need more out of him, and we just saw why in that last engagement.
Yeah, he's going to be in the same position we saw Era in earlier today when they were playing against LGD, and that he needs like every item. Like he just needs so much, and that's one of the problems that you run into when you're picking a hero like a Spirit Breaker, because his role isn't necessarily the same as a normal carry. He's just a very aggressive mid-game kind of snowballing dominator hero, and it's not really working out that well. I mean, he's 5-2, so he's not doing terribly. It's just you want to have more momentum than this if you're playing a lineup with a Spirit Breaker. And the other thing too is Bulba, his contribution to the game hasn't really been that much. Like, he hasn't been able to split push, because if he does, he's going to get teleported on by the Wisp. And even if he does try to split push and he doesn't get teleported on by the Wisp, there's a Keeper of the Light who can counter push him back anyway. So he's going for more of that secondary core build where he goes for the patented Shadow Blade into Scythe of Ice after the Midas. And once he gets a Scythe, I think they'll actually have a decent chance of winning some team fights, because you can just go for the disable on the Alchemist, hopefully before he gets the BKB, and then go from there. But until that point, Alliance are feeling pretty much no pressure at the moment.
Oda picking up a nice chunk of gold. Checking the net worth, we can see he has opened up quite a considerable lead. You're talking about a 50% gold lead over the next highest on the map, which is of course the Shadow Fiend. It's renowned as one of the best flash farmers once he gets a few levels under his belt in the entire game. So as good as he is, even he is struggling to keep up with the pure GPM output of a Max Midas, a Max Grievel's Greed, Midas, Loda controlled Alchemist. And I mean, he's got a Basher up now, so he's going to have a tool to deal with the Shadow Fiend, keep him locked in place. He'll be most likely looking to turn that into an Abyssal for just that purpose, something to lock him down through his BKB. And yeah, I mean, like, right, this has actually turned out to be a bit more of a passive game than I expected. I mean, the kill count is reasonable. I mean, it's not like it's been super quiet, but for the most part, even the follow-up to a lot of these engagements has not been particularly crisp out of either team.
I think it's because, I mean, we've had long days, but they've had long days too.
Oh yeah.
There's so many games that these teams have to play, and every once in a while you just kind of get a bit frazzled and you're not really having the best game. But all in all, I'd say it's definitely much closer than game number one. I mean, I think every game has been closer than game number one in pretty much the whole tournament. But, I mean, let's be fair here. Liquid are definitely playing this significantly better. And Alliance, it's not like they're playing terribly either. They just made like maybe 1 or 2 mistakes and gave away a team fight that maybe they shouldn't have. And now they have to wait for something else, like another Roshan respawn, which is going to be up relatively soon. But Loda, he's got the Basher close to the AC now, or he can just go straight Abyssal if he wants to be able to focus a Spirit Breaker through the BKB, or maybe he wants to focus on TC. So they're going to get the tier 1 for free. Alliance don't really, again, they don't really have a worry right now. They're kind of just farming.
Liquid pulling all the way back up under their tier 2. Trying to get in position for what they anticipate could be a secondary push or even a fake back. Loda and company, though, instead opting to cut through the woods and just try to strangle them out, take the jungle away. Bluffing stuff, going headhunting, trying to guess where they would have gone. And wisely using the scout, we're going to see another ward come down from Ake. Thankfully for Fluff, he's not going to be walking over it anytime soon. Keeping an eye on the GPM, 632 for Loda. Has just been steadily climbing the entire game. I'll tell you who's had a good game is Korok, playing it on an unorthodox hero and Spirit Breaker, sitting at 5-2 and 5. His net worth is at least in range. He's at 9-2 instead of the, obviously he's doubled by the Alchemist, but at this point the Alchemist is about to double everyone except the Shadow Fiend. But again, teams playing very cautiously, which is especially weird for Alliance, whenever you consider the fact that they do have an IO +1 kind of a lineup.
Well, it's kind of the same point I was mentioning earlier when I was saying the gold lead that they have is actually just Loda. Like, it's the only reason they have a gold lead at all. They're actually technically behind in gold if you don't want to count that hero. And of course, you would count that hero because it's a 5 versus 5 game. But the net worth outside of him, the next 3 highest, are all Liquid.
Yep.
So it's kind of scary for Alliance right now because they have one hero who's super farmed, and then 2 heroes that are kind of farmed, and then nothing else. So they're putting a lot of stress on Loda to carry this game.
Oh, swinging like this is not going to be the most difficult. Absolutely chopping wood. Got a solo Roche. And not going to take long. Liquid is in position to challenge this, but they got to get there in a hurry. I do mean right now. And here we go. They're going to charge it out. Loda spotted out. BKB's up. They're going to try to lock him down. And TC lassoed out. We're going to see Alliance eating a lot of damage. And Roshan picked up by S4. The Aegis picked up by S4. Loda on a killing spree. Got a double kill in the meantime as S4 pursues out Bulba. And we're going to see TC next on the list. Bulldog not going to be able to clean him up, but TC not going to be so lucky. Triple kill going the way of Loda. And a really nice play out of S4 to make sure that that Aegis was not taken away. Loda showing, hey, you know what? Who needs more than one super farmed hero? I got this.
Yeah, the S4 picking up the Aegis thing pretty much won them the fight, honestly. Because if somebody from Liquid had gotten it, like if Korok got it or something like that, then it would have been a totally different story. And the other nice thing, too, was the lasso came out on the Batrider as soon as there was a BKB, because they knew that they were going to go for the Requiem. That Requiem would have hurt Lotus so much inside of the pit that he probably wouldn't have been able to fight anymore. So again, really nice coordination from Alliance during that Roshan engagement. I think Liquid maybe waited a little bit too long to get there, but I don't know, it's really hard to say. But now, Loda just chopping wood on the tower. They have a glyph, but they don't have a Shadow Fiend for another 10 seconds.
They're going to try to hold him down. Here comes up. Nice swap by Mike, bringing him back. Korok coming from the well. Mike gets a lot of damage. There's Bulldog. They're going to try to lasso him out. Loda, very low, going to BKB and just run for it. Korok got a bash at the last second. That might be enough. Nope, never mind. Got behind his team. Now Bulba called out. A little bit overextended. They trade 2 away for nil. They came very close to cleaning Loda up, but yeah, Alchemist's kind of tough to kill. He's only got 22 armor and a gajillion hit points. 2,600 gold in the bank on top of it. The Shadow Fiend's back with us, but Bulba and Venge gone. And that really was not a bad chain of initiation. Very little bit of RNG love helped them get him down so low. That's kind of just how the hero works. Loda with Unstable Concoction, bringing him back to full. Now ready to go back to work. And we're going to see, yep, there's another charge in. Korok tries to back out. S4 eating the magic missile. Unstable Concoction tossed out. Korok eats it right in the face. But as of right now, Liquid just can't get close. S4 still has his Aegis even. Has not had it popped off. Korok has his ult in 8 seconds. He has a charge in 12, but doesn't look like he's going to get to use either. Oh, never mind. Thought they were going to back. Not going to be the case. They're going to go lasso Bulba is what they're going to do. Bulba fresh up from a respawn. Sit right on back. Mike going to throw out the stun, but might end up dead because of it. He's hit with sticky napalm. S4 doing what he can, but S4 beginning to feel very tanky. We see the Chakram cut the poor gal in half. 13-19, Alliance has cracked it open. And, yep, the gold that was close at one point, very close at one point, now back in 5-digit territory.
Yeah, it's one of those escalated quickly moments. And the net worth right now, he is actually worth more than the Shadow Fiend and the Prophet combined.
Yeah.
Like more. How is that even? Is this real life? Like, I'm curious. But yeah, Alliance definitely playing the team fights much better than Liquid now. Liquid just seem not able to get a good foothold in either game, really. I mean, for a while, they were looking pretty sturdy, but it never really felt like there was a point where Liquid were on the verge of winning the game. You know what I mean? It was just like, they're doing okay. They're not just losing. And when you have to consider it that way, Liquid were never really in that dominant of a position to begin with.
Yep.
The Shadow Fiend, he needs so much in this game to be able to carry, just because of the lineup that Alliance has. And when you have to think of it that way, it typically means that Liquid picked a tiny bit greedy, which I would say they did. They have a couple of disables, but for the most part, they don't have a great team fight composition. They have more of a small skirmish fight composition and the ability to split push. Whereas Alliance, they're 5 versus 5, especially with the Timber Saw and Alchemist having this much farm. And heck, even having an Illuminate is really tough to deal with, and that's on top of a Batrider initiation. So they get the tier 2 for free in the bottom lane. I think we might be seeing the last push of the game here pretty soon with that Abyssal done on Loda.
Yeah, but Loda, again, as you had said, picking up his last big item, they're ready to go to work. Tier 3 not going to last long. And not even going to be, no, they didn't have a glyph. There's a BKB and the lasso going to drag it back. Swapped out. Very nice play from IX Mike. I don't think it matters, though, as the damage output is just immense. We're going to see TC focus fire down, sprouted in by his own teammate. And Korok comes in, charges a couple, but just look at the health melt. There's nothing they can do. Loda's going to charge him into the base. GG's going to come out.
Is under attack.
So in the end, Alliance, not quite as lopsided as game one, but still a very convincing win by the time all was said and done. They keep their record spotless, improving now to 10-0, and solidifying their position as a true front-runner for the international favorites. And that's no surprise to anyone, but yeah, I mean, just a well-played game beginning to end. I really like the way you described it down the end, or down the stretch there, is the fact that, you know, Liquid had it close, but their lineup is not a lineup that plays real well close. They play real well close on their side of the goal graph. You know, they play real well whenever the Shadow Fiend is not just being lassoed and killed every time. They play real well whenever the Nature's Prophet is an 0-5 and 6 because he just had a really rough game, and so on and so forth. And they certainly play real well whenever you don't have an Alchemist that finishes a game at 7:31 GPM.
Yeah, Loda had what I would refer to as all the gold.
All of it.
He actually was just taking it from other people at that point. I mean, his net worth was absolutely ridiculous at that stage. He was more or less 6-slotted. He just had to get rid of the Midas and buy something else, which at the end of the game, he had another 3,000 gold, sell the Midas, that's another 1,000 or so. So yeah, he would have had enough to buy another item if he really wanted to. But that means Alliance remains undefeated, like nothing, not a single loss, which is very impressive considering the stage. And Liquid go to 5-5 now.
Sitting there right with LGD. Speaking of LGD, we talked about that. I mean, Alliance is basically the LGD of this year if they're able to tear through the remaining schedule they have here in the preliminary stage. They're undefeated so far. LGD was undefeated coming out and certainly went deep into the winner's bracket. This year, LGD, China, certainly a new look kind of a team, but at the same time, struggling. I'm not sure where they are now. I know where they were just a series ago. 5-5. Liquid right on that bubble too. So this is really getting down to the nitty-gritty. And we're gonna get to see Liquid, and depending on how things pan out, we might get to see Liquid in their single most important series as we cast them one more time tonight. And if they just continue splitting series and they stay on that bubble, it could end up being a series that determines a hell of a lot. And really, you can't oversell how important it is to be in the winner's bracket, not the loser's bracket, to not start the tournament with your foot half out the doors. So really, again, so much going on, so much on the line for these teams, and hope you guys are enjoying the show. Speaking of the show, how about we take a look ahead at what's coming